It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're finally heading into the movies of 2001, starting off on January 12th, 2001. We've got a lot of movies to look at today. I counted 6, I think, from yesterday. Let me just double check here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... Yeah, 6. 6 movies overall to look at, so we have a lot of films to get to. Let's not waste any more time and just jump on into a new one. We'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is Save the Last Dance. So in this movie, you have Julia Stiles and Sean Patrick Thomas as a teenage interracial couple in Chicago who work together to help Stiles' character train for a Juilliard School dance audition. And, I mean, we've pretty much seen movies like this before in the past and the present, and this one isn't anything too special or anything too in particular fascinating or any way, shape, or form. I mean, it is pretty much a movie we've seen done over and over again, and it's fine for what it is. I don't think it's anything too grand or too spectacular in any way, shape, or form, but back then people ate this movie up. I mean, this was a massive hit when it came out. Grossed over $100 million worldwide, over a $13 million budget, so it does have a following to it. I saw it a long time ago, and from what I remember from it, I just remember it just being okay. I didn't really think there was anything spectacular about it, anything too intriguing about it. I mean, I like Julia Stiles and Sean Patrick Thomas. I think their chemistry overall is very good, and I think they do carry a lot of the emotional weight of the film in general, but the story, like I said, it's very predictable. It's been there, done that. We've seen this stuff done over and over again. Directed by Thomas Carter, who's directed a couple movies we've actually tackled before. Metro, the last movie he did, was pretty good, and he would later go on to direct Coach Carter after this, which I thought was a really good film. So, overall, I don't think this is a bad movie per se, but it's one we've seen done over and over again. Anything new, nothing too spectacular in this one, I'm trying to say here. Nothing too intriguing, nothing too that interesting. I mean, it's fine for what it is, but it's not one I'd say go out and rush and see it in any way, shape, or form. So, not much more to say about that one. That's Save the Last Dance. So let's go ahead and get to the type of movies you expect to see on a weekend like in January, early January. Here's one of those movies that's one of those films that you could tell was clearly dumped for the sake of being dumped on this weekend because they knew how bad it was going to be. Here's Double Take. So yeah, simple plot in this movie. Eddie Griffin's going to have to act like Orlando Jones. Orlando Jones is going to have to act like Eddie Griffin. And it'd be funny if there was actually a good script to work with here, but sadly there is not. And as much as Orlando Jones is trying his hardest to save this movie, him and Eddie Griffin, it's not enough to save the film in general here. It's a really kind of a lackluster film. Like, I saw it a long time ago, and I really do not remember too much about it. I thought it was just not funny, a plot that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. The humor wasn't there, the writing wasn't there. It's just a largely forgettable film, and really, that's all I got to say about this movie. It's a film that comes and goes, and it's the perfect definition of type of movie that they dump in January because they obviously do not believe in it, and the results speak for themselves here. So that's Double Take, so let's go ahead and move on to the next movie we have here, and that is Kevin Costner in 13 Days. So this movie basically is a dramatization of the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, seen from the perspective of the U.S. political leadership. You have Kevin Costner starring as the top White House assistant, Kenneth P. O'Donnell, Bruce Greenwood as President Kennedy, Stephen Culp as Robert F. Kennedy, Dylan Baker as Robert McNamara, and directed by Roger Donaldson, who's directed a couple of movies we've talked about on the show before, including most notably stuff like Species, Dante's Peak, White Sands, Cadillac Man, Cocktail, The Getaway. A decent action director overall, but this, I'll say this movie isn't the worst. It's not even a bad movie per se, but it's not as good as I think it should be. I think it's a film that really takes dramatic licensing to another level, tries to ump up the dramatic effect for something that probably should be more in-depth. Like, if you had a better writer or director, like here, an Oliver Stone, for example, like an Oliver Stone at his peak around this time, or maybe somebody like, who's another person? Maybe, I'm trying to think of who else might have made this work. Maybe Scorsese, maybe, but Oliver Stone or Martin Scorsese, probably the two people I think of. I don't know if I trust the guy that also did Cocktail, or a writer here that really has not done a whole lot of noteworthy works. His other works have included The Haunting, which definitely not a good start, nor was The Wolfman. But he did do Road to Perdition, so he at least did something of noteworthiness that was actually pretty good. But, I mean, the movie, it's not bad per se, but it's just not as good as I think they wanted it to be. I feel like it's a film that had a lot of good intentions to it, has a really good cast overall. I mean, Kevin Costner, Bruce Greenwood, Stephen Culp, Dylan Baker, strong cast overall here, but just not a really good movie to support a really engaging storyline about the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I think it could have been done a whole lot better overall. But in this case, not so much. I mean, it's not a bad movie, but it's a decent movie overall, but it definitely could have been a whole lot better. That's just my thinking on that one, so I just realized before we even get to Antitrust, I completely forgot to talk about our next movie here. This is actually being recorded after I've done all the other movies on here, so my apologies to that. Here's Finding Forrester. So in Finding Forrester, you have this black teenager, played by Rob Brown, who's invited to attend a prestigious private high school. By chance, he befriends a reclusive writer, played by Sean Connery, and he refines his talents for writing and comes to terms with his identity. It's one of those coming-of-age storylines that, in general, we've seen done over and over again, and this one doesn't really do anything a whole lot differently, except it gives Sean Connery a chance to show off more of his dramatic abilities and why he won an Oscar for something like The Untouchables, and show that he does have range as an actor, and I think he's perfectly fine in the film. Rob Brown, I think, is perfectly fine in the movie. So is Anna Paquin, F. Murray Abraham, Busta Rhymes, but in general, the movie doesn't really do anything that we haven't seen done in various other films like this, where you have, it's too much like Good Will Hunting in a way, which is coincidental because this comes from the same director. But to his credit, it's definitely a lot better than his last movie he directed, which was Psycho, which, yeah, he definitely needed a big step in the right direction after that one. But this, it's a fine movie in general. It's nothing too interesting. It's nothing too engaging. But if you want to see some good performances overall, I think it's perfectly fine for what it is. So, not much more to say about that one. So that is Finding Forrester. That is 13 Days. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie we have here, and that is Antitrust. One of those movies that was clearly intended for some other time in the year, but MGM saw how bad it was and basically said, yeah, we're dumping this in January. You have the story here about young idealistic programmers at a large corporation that offers a significant salary, an informal working environment, and creative opportunities for those talented individuals willing to work with them. And you have this charismatic CEO played by Tim Robbins, who seems to be good-natured, but of course, Ryan Felipe plays somebody who begins to unravel the terrible hidden truths of the operation, and you could pretty much see where this goes from here. It is not an engaging movie whatsoever. It's a pretty boring movie the more I think about it, and I don't know. Like, it also has Rachel Lee Cook, Claire Forlani, and it's just, there's nothing about this movie that's exciting or interesting in the slightest. It's a really dull movie that does not have a lot of things to it whatsoever. It's just kind of a mediocre film on so many levels. It has a lot of bad cliches, a lot of mediocre storylines, and it just doesn't work altogether. It's a really abysmal film, honestly. And like I said, it's a film you could clearly tell it was intended to be something that was supposed to be seen in any of the other months of the year. This is clearly a January movie that was dumped because they knew how bad it really was, and you can definitely see why. So we talked about some bad movies here, so let's get to some good movies. How about the Coen brothers' newest film, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? So Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is, of course, the latest film from the Coen brothers, following up on The Big Lebowski. This one takes place in rural Mississippi during the 1930s, and it follows three escaped convicts played by George Clooney, John Turturro, and Tim Blake Nelson, searching for hidden treasure while a sheriff relentlessly pursues them. And the story is basically a modern satire mixed in with a lot of elements of the social features of the American South, as well as a loosely based storyline based on Homer's epic Greek poem, the Odyssey. In fact, if you watch this, you see the sirens in the trailer there, a Cyclops, the main character's name is Ulysses, which is the Roman name for Odysseus. I mean, it's a lot to take in, but man, this is a great movie, man. I mean, this is right when the Coen brothers were at their peak. Fargo, Big Lebowski, and then this movie. And I'm not much of a bluegrass person, but this movie will make you want to listen to bluegrass, country, and folk music. I mean, it's really, really damn good music, and the acting, top notch, really funny stuff. Just a very hilarious film, a visually stunning film to look at. It's a great movie overall. It's a film that I cannot recommend enough. It's really one of those movies that I really cannot say a whole lot more about, but it's just a great movie, man. I love this film a lot. John Goodman, Holly Hunter, Charles Durning, a phenomenal cast in general in this film. Just great movie. Great movie. So, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our last movie we have here, and that is David Mamet's State and Maine. So the story of State and Maine is that you have, having left New Hampshire over excessive demands by the locals, the cast and crew of this movie called The Old Mill moves their movie shoot to a small town in Vermont. However, they soon discover the Old Mill burned down in 1960, and the star can't keep his pants zipped up, the starlet won't take her top off, and the locals are quite as easily conned as they appear. And for David Mamet, this is one of those films where it's just like, it's definitely one of his movies, but it definitely feels a lot different compared to his other movies that we've talked about. We've talked about stuff like Things Change. We've talked about Homicide, Oleana, The Spanish Prisoner. I don't think we covered The Winslow Boy, but David Mamet has been a phenomenal director and a phenomenal writer in general. This is one of those films when I remember watching it, and I don't really remember too much about it, except that it has a stacked cast of William H. Macy, Sarah Jessica Parker, Alec Baldwin, Julia Stiles, Philip Seymour Hoffman, David Paymer, Clark Gregg, Patti LuPone, Charles Durning, Jonathan Katz, Laura Silverman. John Krasinski has an uncredited cameo in this movie as well. It's an intriguing idea overall and a decent film from Mamet, but it's definitely not one of his stronger films in general. I feel like he's made a lot better movies than this film, and it's just kind of like, this one's just okay. I mean, it's fine for what it is, but it definitely feels like it could have been a whole lot better considering the talent they have on here. But I don't know. I thought it was a decent film overall, but it's definitely not one of David Mamet's stronger films in my opinion. And so with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. When we meet next time, we'll have 4 movies to look at, including Gene Hackman in The Pledge. We also have Sam Raimi's The Gift. We also have All the Pretty Horses, and You Can Count on Me. So 4 films in general to look at next time around. We'll take a look at those movies on the next episode. I have 5 movies, actually. There's another one here, Dracula 2000, which, that's going to be a fun one to talk about. So 5 movies in general to look at next time. We'll delve into those on the next episode. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the place on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So with that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.